Ladies and gentlemen, we have Jordan Peterson basically dismantling feminism in front of two feminists, okay? Yes, you cannot make this up, all right? Look, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm a Jordan Peterson fan. You know, for me, I love the fact that he just seemed to have stayed the same. He hasn't changed, right? So he stayed the same, you know, a man with some real morals. And a lot of people haven't stayed the same. A lot of people have switched sides and changed, and all of a sudden they're, you know, during this election, it's been crazy. Let's just put it like that. But anyway, guys, we're getting right into it. Without further ado, if you're soft, if you're sensitive, viewer discretion is definitely advised. Let's ride.
Oh my God!
Jordan, you've done endless interviews. You've been publicising your book, and they've generated plenty of heated debate.
And I actually sold out the Apollo. It had 5,000 seats.
All right, stop boasting. Do you think, though, because of the heat that has been generated, that your views have been misrepresented at times?
Oh, definitely, but that's, you know, that's part and parcel of the process. I did take a very forceful stance, let's say, against some of the excesses of the radical left-wingers, and it's in their best interest to paint me as somehow a figure of the extreme right, because then I don't have to be contended with. But, I mean, it's easy for people's views to be oversimplified in a very large public debate.
I mean, in terms of some of the issues, I mean, you say you've been painted as an extreme right-winger.
No, some people have tried that. Not very successfully, but they've tried it.
And you came to prominence in part over your opposition to this law that we just talked about in Canada, proposing the use of preferred pronouns for transgender people. Just for clarity.
Mandating them.
Yeah.
Right.
Saying that you should do it.
No, that you had to do it.
Right, you had to do it by law. But just for clarity, do you think a trans woman is a real woman?
I don't really like the way those questions are formulated. You know, I don't know what that means. What do you mean a real woman?
Let me explain something to you guys. Exactly. That question is, they're setting him up to fail. If anybody asks you that question, to me, that's the setup. That's just my opinion. Back to the video.
Well, I'm asking you, in your mind, you know, it depends what you think a real woman is, but do you think a trans woman is a woman?
No.
Why not?
Because I think that women are capable, generally speaking, of having babies, and they have female genitalia, and they have an XX chromosome, and I think the biological markers are relevant. It doesn't necessarily mean that I don't think that people should be treated with respect and dignity if they happen not to fit easily into a gender category. That's a different issue.
Right.
But it's a matter of definition, and I actually think it's a foolish argument in some sense, because what do you mean by real?
Well, I mean, you've just clarified that, though. You don't think that a trans woman is a woman. And do you think that that is what is behind or explains your opposition to this idea of a law mandating you to use a preferred pronoun, is because you don't actually believe that that's the truth, that a trans woman is a woman and therefore you can't use that pronoun?
No, that's not my argument at all.
Really?
Yeah, really. My argument is that the government shouldn't compel voluntary speech.
No, but I know what your argument is, and
no,
you've
but
made
that's
it very
really
clearly.
it. No, but that's exactly it. There's no
motivation
There's
behind
no motivation behind it.
But you don't believe
I wouldn't have put
a trans woman
everything on my online in my life to take the stance I did unless I had thought that through very deeply. And I've thought it through very deeply. There aren't hidden motivations that have to do with some arbitrary prejudice against trans people.
Okay.
It's pure and simply this. There's never been a time in English common law history where the government compelled speech, and the Canadian government dared to do that. And that was unacceptable. And they masked it with this show of compassion for the oppressed, and I don't buy it.
Right, but you would, as I think you've said, at an individual level, if somebody asked you, if you know, somebody asked you to use a particular pronoun, you would do so.
Well, I have.
You have?
Yes.
Right, fine.
Yes.
Let's talk about feminism. Are you a feminist?
No, not as it's currently defined, certainly not.
No, well, in any other definition?
Well, I think that anybody who doesn't think that the competitive landscape should be opened up for equality of opportunity is not thinking. And so everyone's interests are better served if people have as equal access to opportunity to display their talents and to manifest their talents in the world as possible. So in that sense, certainly. But feminism now, and this is why it's so deeply unpopular, a very small minority of women in the UK identify as feminists. And the reason for that is it's primarily become an ideological weapon. And it's an ideology that I detest, actually, the ideology that it's associated
And to be quite honest with you, to add on to what he's saying, number one, just to kind of go back, I could just tell her angle. It's not coming from she's not coming from an understanding point. I do think she's trying to set him up. I'm just going to be honest, the way she's wording these questions. But Jordan Peterson is seasoned, right? This is nothing new to him, and he knows how to handle it, which is really good. But again, these questions, it's like, is she really a real woman? We know that she's not a real woman, right? And that's no knock on anybody that is, trans or anything like that. But, that's just what he believes in. And honestly, it's what is fact. Like, forget what he believes. It's just fact, right? However, you see this question right here, and this is important, and she doesn't expound on it when she just says, when she asks him, has anybody asked you to call him maybe a different pronoun? And he said he has. That's because Jordan Peterson has respect for human beings, right? See, she thought that he was going to say no, right? Which would have, obviously on her program made him look bad, but we know he's good to go. Anyway, back to the video. Let me know what you guys think, but back to the video.
With collectivist ideology.
Right. I mean, okay, and that's your view about feminism. Aisha, are you a feminist?
Oh, absolutely. I'm a very proud feminist. And when I was a special advisor in government, I worked on women and equality issues. And I was very proud, actually, of a piece of legislation I got on the statute book with my former boss, Harriet Harman, the Equality Act in 2010, which strengthened our anti-discrimination laws. And I fought very hard to get more women into public life, into the Labour Party. And I'm very, very proud of being a feminist, hence my pink dress.
Oh, well, all right. Obviously reverting to type then in the pink dress.
Absolutely, well.
You would like men to regain or reclaim their strength physically, mentally and morally. Is that broadly correct?
I would say morally, fundamentally, but I think the other things go along with that.
Right, and if that
But it isn't men precisely who I'm speaking to. It's people. I'm a clinical psychologist. I'm actually interested in individuals, and I'm interested in their fortification against tragedy. Every time I do an interview, the interview is always political. It's always political.
Well, the clue is in the title of this programme. We are the Daily Politics.
No, fair enough. No, look, fair enough. And I'm not casting aspersions at this programme, but the fundamental news that's important about what I'm doing isn't the political element. And the people who talk to me don't talk politically. They say they've watched my lectures.
But part of it is that I think for a lot of people the kind of personal does become the political.
Or the political becomes the personal.
Yeah, and I think in terms of
in this situation, a lot of people are wrong, because primarily what's happening is people are watching my lectures, and as a consequence, their lives are improving dramatically.
Oh, I'm sure they are. I'm sure people are have had a huge conversion after, and they're much happier once they've been.
It's not a conversion.
But what I would like to do is kind of almost. I think at the moment the discussion about feminism is very divisive, and sometimes it can sort of be like, okay, men have to lose and women have to gain. Actually, everybody has a lot to gain by greater equality. Now, whether you get the equality of outcome that you want, I think only time will tell. But certainly, equality of opportunity is very important. And actually,
we can agree on that.
And a lot of men would benefit from that. So I think a lot of men are having a lot of crises at the moment in terms of mental health, suicide issues, their own sense of identity, because I think some of the stereotypes put on men are quite limiting for them as well. I think they make men quite unhappy as well.
The devil's in the details with regards to equality, because I'm an advocate of equality of opportunity. But I think the idea outcomes, that's an appalling doctrine.
Why?
All right. Well,
because you have to produce an unbelievably potent bureaucracy to make the ever greater and ever finer distinctions that are necessary to enforce equality of outcome. How many group differences are you going to equalize across?
And just letting you know, that's not happening anytime soon. Especially when it comes to this stuff. There will always be people that disagree, right? Always. Especially when it comes to the gender stuff. What? Are you kidding me? Back to the video.
Is it just gender and sex? How many genders?
No, so
gender and ethnicity? How many genders?
I think
how many ethnicities? How many races?
We'll let Aisha answer.
I think what people are trying to do with this, and certainly as somebody who has sought to sort of do this myself, I think you set yourself ambitions for what you would like to see, and then you try and remove as many of the structural barriers and obstacles. So you try and create that, fair crack of the whip and that equality of opportunity to see where you get to with the outcomes.
That's
now,
fine.
we are in very early stages. It's only 100 years since, women got the vote in this country. We have had a long established patriarchal society and set up for a long time in the world, in this country. So I think we have a long way to go to see where it plays out. There is no country in the world where, we really do have gender equality properly yet, in terms of real decision making and real
Some of the
power.
Scandinavian countries, maybe?
But they're still not quite there. And I think you've spoken a lot about this. There's still a way to go in Scandinavia. Things are not perfect in Scandinavia
I haven't spoken
at all.
about that specifically. I've spoken about
You spoke about the right stuff yesterday. You talked about the
Well,
Scandinavian.
I've spoken about the fact that, see, one of the things that's happened in the analysis of the differences between men and women is that the social constructionist claim is that the differences are socially constructed, right? Is that it's a consequence of environment that men and women differ.
Check this out. A lot of what Jordan Peterson says goes over a lot of people's head. It goes over a lot of people's head, right? Let me play that back.
It's a consequence of environment that men and women differ. But what the scientific literature indicates is that
Consequence of environment that men and women differ. It's not about your gender. It's not about, what skin color you have. It's about your environment. Where did you grow up? Right? Because that builds your what? That builds your character. Let's go. Back to the video.
as cultures become more egalitarian, like they have in Scandinavia, the differences between men and women actually increase rather than decreasing, which is a direct repost to the social constructionist view. So they just deny all that. The biggest differences in the world in interest and temperament are between Scandinavian men and women. It's exactly the opposite of what everyone predicted.
Can I just pick up on one thing you said a little earlier in the interview, which you said it's the moral guidance that you are focused on. You think that is particularly important. How do you square that with the behaviour of perhaps arguably, a prominent alpha male president of the United States, Donald Trump? When his behaviour, he is accused of having an affair with a porn star when his wife was pregnant. How does that fit with morally reclaiming?
Well, I would say that was rather clearly immoral.
Right.
Yeah,
but you would
not
still,
to be a target for emulation.
But you still would have voted for him over Hillary Clinton as an identity politics. It's just how
none
do
of that
you
was on the table, and I said I might have voted for him on a whim. That's all.
But you also did say you started out feeling quite close to Hillary Clinton. Can I
And again, those are allegations. Why are you? Were you there? Were you in the bed? Were you in the bedroom? You see what I'm saying? Like, they're so quick. We were even talking about Trump. Where did that come from? Hey, look, but I get it. He's a topic right now. He's a talking topic right now. But anyway, guys, I'm ending it there. Wow, what a masterclass that Jordan Peterson gave right there. And hopefully they weren't as focused on, getting an edge over him rather than listening to what he says, absorbing the information, right? And seeing how, well, they're not going to do any of that. Let's just be honest. They're not doing any of that, okay? We're not going to lie to ourselves. Okay. Anyway, guys, that's pretty much it. Thank you so much for your support recently. I really appreciate you. Guys are awesome. All right, guys, make sure that you slap the like button and kick the subscribe button for more. Until next time,